the imposter syndrome. It's it's a one that affects us all, and we'll talk about that in a moment at different times. But the imposter syndrome, it's about that feeling that you're not really qualified, or you're blagging it, or and we all have this from time to time. It's quite an interesting one to do. It was an interesting one to actually put together, to be honest, out of all the ones we've done. And I enjoy doing them all, as you know, but the emotional intelligence one this morning, and then this imposter syndrome, it's been great to put together, because there's certainly been times in my career where I felt like, I'll give you the example, especially when I started this business, for argument's sake, and I had to go and sell myself and sell the business to other people, and people look at you like you're the expert, and sometimes you walk out thinking, am I the expert? Do I know what I'm talking about? And and as long as you've done the learning and everything, it's all in there, but you don't feel like that you've sometimes got the knowledge and things like that, and you feel a bit of an imposter doing it. Of course, that changes with experience and learning and time and everything else that comes along with it, but sometimes you have to do everything once first, don't you, before you do it again and again and again. So sometimes this is where this imposter syndrome will come out. I don't care, even if you've been a leader for 20 years, there'll be certain parts of your job that you might get this overwhelming feeling of, oh God, well, people are looking at me and I'm supposed to be the expert, and you've got that lack of self-belief that's in there. So without further ado, the imposter syndrome, let's have a look at what it's about. Now this one, I've set this up a little bit differently to the other ones. So the other ones have been content, 3 or 5 top tips. I've done this one a little bit differently. So I've got a little bit of content, and then 10 things. 10, I can't get all my fingers out. 10 things that you can go and take action on to help with the imposter syndrome. So slightly different bit of a setup today, but hopefully it will be quite useful, because when I was putting it together, there were so many actions that you can take to help with this. I couldn't fit them into 3 or 5, so I kind of went, let's do it differently. Let's do a bit of content, and then literally spend the rest of the session going through the 10 things that you can go and do something with, and take some action on. Okay, so what is imposter syndrome? There's a bit of a cycle for you. I don't know if you can see those words. I'll read them out to you. You're fake. You're blagging it. You're worried you're not up to it. You're worried people are going to find out that you're not as good as they think you are. You're worried about getting caught. And you're in a confidence crisis. Any of those things. And there's probably more that go through people's heads. It causes what we call the imposter syndrome. I'm not what they think I am. I'm blagging it. I'm fake. I'm worried I'm going to get found out. I remember signing off on a coaching program for a operations director who'd been an operations director for a good number of years in the 2nd or the 3rd largest insurance business in the country, if not the world. The coaching program was an executive coaching program, and I turned up, and in session 1 we do a bit of a diagnostic and find out how I can help the person, and and I turned up thinking, okay, she's an ops director, so she's going to want to talk about strategy and her brand and how we can help her support the change in the business and everything else. And within the first 20 minutes, she'd basically broke down and said, look, I feel like I've been blagging my role for the last 20 years. I don't feel like I'm worthy of it. And so you never know, and I can tell you that story because she's not the ops director anymore, so even if you went and Googled it, you wouldn't know who she was. And there's lots of ops directors there, by the way. So the point I'm making here is you can look at somebody from a distance, and you can look and go, God, they're always confident, aren't they? I wish I could be a bit more confident like them. They always seem to know what they're talking about, and so on and so on and so on. But you never know and it links into what we did this morning with emotional intelligence. You don't know what's in somebody else's filing cabinet. You never know what's going on. And believe me, every single leader and every single person in business at some point has had the imposter syndrome. Okay? I think that would be fair to say. Guys, if there's any leaders on the course today, is that fair to say? Drop me a yes in the chat box. I think it's personally fair to say that everybody at some point has felt one of those things. There you go. Thank you, Darren. We all go through this at different times, and it's normal to go through it. But sometimes we're the cause of it. So it's those thoughts that go through our head that generate that lack of belief or self-limiting beliefs that we've got, or maybe we've done something and been told off in the past. And we have that bad memory about it, and so on and so on and so on. So look, the whole point of that slide is to go, right, this is pretty normal, guys, okay? You're going to go through it. You're probably going to go through it again in the future at some point, and you've probably been through it already when it comes to it, okay? So, I feel fake. I'm worried I'm going to get found out. I'm not very confident. I'm going to get caught out. And so on and so on and so on. It's all there, okay? And of course you're in the middle of it. And all of these thoughts go through your head on a regular basis, as we know. Okay? So, studies suggest 70%, oh, I've gone too quick. 70% of people regularly go through this. Okay? Regularly go through it. Over and over and over again, different times, okay? You can change it, and the 10 points that I'm going to give you today will help you change it. Of course you can. But 70% regularly go through it. Day to day, week to week, hour to hour, and pretty much everybody has been through it at some point, okay? So, pretty normal for people to go through. So, two types of thinking, two types of people, okay? I personally think it's pretty normal to go through the imposter syndrome, and it actually makes you a little bit human, and it also makes you aware that you might have to learn some new things, because there's two ways of looking at this, two types of mindset here. You've got people that believe that not everybody is the full package. What I mean by that, and I don't mean that in a hindering way, I mean it in a helpful way, they believe that not everybody knows everything. Okay, nobody can know everything in the world. What that enables them to do is it enables them to have a learning mindset on the back of it. If you, in your head, think, well, do you know what? I don't know everything. I don't know everything. What it allows you to do is have a learning mindset and be able to go and learn new things to add to your filing cabinet for the future. So if you feel a little bit unsure, let's say you've got to do a presentation, let's say you've got to speak in a board meeting or whatever, and you're a little bit unsure of the content, then by doing that, and you might feel that imposter syndrome when you're talking, you're trying to talk with confidence, and in your head you're kind of backpedaling very, very quickly, trying to think of everything that you need to do. If you have that mindset, then the next time that happens to you, or when you come away from that situation, your mindset is a learning mindset, and go, right, okay, I don't want to feel that again. I don't want to have the imposter syndrome again. So what do I need to go and learn and practice so I don't feel that way? Yeah, and practice is one of the great things about imposter syndrome. The more you learn and practice, the less you get the imposter syndrome. It's as simple as that. It's like I remember when I stood up in public and spoke for the first time as a trainer. I felt like a complete fake, 100%. Especially to people that were business to business. I stood up. For the first time, I wasn't introduced as a learner, as a new starter. I stood up and people looked at me and think, well, this guy must have been doing it for years. He knows what he's talking about. And in my head, I'm going, oh my God, remember everything you've got to say. You shouldn't be here. What gives you the right to stand up in front of these people? Believe me, over and over and over again, it's only over time of learning new things and experience and practice that starts to go away. So if you believe in your head that you don't know everything and other people don't know everything, it gives you the capacity to learn. And I think that's quite a human thing, our humility, and also it gives you a learning mindset. You're able to then to go and put input into your head. I don't think anybody on this session would tell me that they know everything. Might be one or two that try, but nobody can know everything. Now that's the first mindset, and in my opinion, that's the helpful mindset. Then you've got what I would call the hindering mindset, where you've got somebody that pretends to be it all, okay? And they think they know it all as well. Now, the problem with this is that they're very, very limited on their learning, okay? You sometimes get this when you have, and remember, learning is IQ and EQ. And if you're on the session this morning, IQ intelligence, EQ emotional intelligence, okay? Because you can have a really high IQ, but a really low EQ, and you need to learn more about it. But some people with a high IQ don't always see the need to learn the EQ stuff. And again, if you weren't on this morning session and only this one, maybe I'm confusing you a little bit, so I apologise. But basically, if you can grow your intelligence, you can grow your emotional intelligence as well at the same time. Not everybody knows it all. Some people pretend to. And to be honest, that's worse for the individual. They might think it's better, but it's not, because they are more likely to get an imposter syndrome than them. Okay? If you think you know it all, and somebody asks you a question and you're struggling to answer it, all of a sudden, the imposter syndrome will start taking over. Now, no, in my opinion, nobody can know it all. You can have people that are majorly intelligent, majorly emotionally intelligent. You can even have people that have got eidetic memories. But they still haven't seen everything, or heard everything, or tasted everything, or experienced everything, and so on and so on and so on. So just bear in mind that actually, sometimes we pretend to do this, whereas actually the right thing to do is do this. You know, I used to be worried about going, no, I've not heard of that. If I was running a session and somebody went, how does this fit into NLP theory, John? And I didn't know NLP theory at the time, I'd kind of go, oh yeah, well and I think, well, I should know that, I should know that. Whereas now, if somebody says, how would this fit into this theory, John? And I've never heard of it before, I'd go, oh, I've not heard of that before, tell me about it. Let me learn. And then if I need to go away and Google it and find more information out about it, and nobody goes, oh, you should know. That people generally don't do that, and you might have an odd one, I get you that. So this side of the model is where we want to be. Be okay with not knowing everything. Be okay with the fact that you need to learn stuff every day. I didn't enjoy school very much, but I loved college and I loved doing my master's degree a few years ago. And I think the main difference between the two was when I left school, very naive at, I think it was 16 at the time, actually, I can't do that these days, can you? When I left school before I went to college, my mindset when I left school was, oh, thank God for that, I haven't got to learn anything anymore. And I know that might seem really ridiculous to the people on this call now, but at 16, I thought school was finished, so learning was done. Boy, did I have a shock. But once I got it through my bit of a thick head that I've got, that learning happened every day, and learning is the way to make myself feel better, learn more, help people, and so on, I started to enjoy learning. And it also taught me that not everybody knows everything, and you've got to learn every day. I don't care whether you're 200 years old, there'll be something that you can learn every single day. And I like learning. It gives me joy now. Which is why I enjoyed the academic stuff after school, because nobody at school told me I could enjoy it, to be honest. School only teaches you to pass exams, Timothy said. You're absolutely right. I know that's quite a general statement, Tim. I would 90% agree with you on that. I think some schools are starting to try and change. Okay, I can see little bits of it. Certainly in my eldest daughter, in her last year of school, they started doing some emotional intelligence teaching and stuff like that. But on the whole part, we teach people to pass exams or coursework or whatever. You're absolutely right. And it's normally IQ, not EIQ, with it. So learning's good. It's great. It's fun. It's brilliant. I like learning stuff. I remember going to one of the consultancies I worked in before I started Solution Focused, and in the canteen there was a library. And it was all like motivational books and thinking and NLP and business and all this type of stuff. And there was no magazines and stuff like that, or just a library in there. But, you know, when I say library, it's a bit grandiose. It was a bookshelf with loads of books on it. What the consultancy would encourage us to do is every couple of hours is go in there and read 4 or 5 pages of a book. And I'd be like, well, no, I'm busy. And they go, yeah, you're not too busy to learn. Never too busy to learn. So actually, every couple of hours when you've been in concentration mode and you need a bit of a break, instead of going eating something or whatever, just nip in there, read 5 pages of a book, nip back out. And it taught me to learn regularly, which is another great thing. And I used to then look forward to those 2 hours, every 2-3 hours, and sometimes it wasn't bang on 2 hours if I was in something or doing something like this, but every now and then, nip in, read a book, happy days, feel good. And what it does is it helps you with the imposter syndrome, because the more information you've got, the more knowledge you've got, then the less you feel fake, the less you feel that you're going to get found out, and so on and so on and so on. Okay? So, try to be on this side of the model if you can. We all know the know-it-alls in life. Then, you know, people generally don't like them very much because they're know-it-alls and know everything. They go on. They can't possibly know everything. Even if you have an expert in the field, they will still not know everything. I did have that thrown back at me once. Rolls-Royce Aerospace. I said, you can learn every day. And one of the guys went, I am one of 4 chief engineers in the world, in my field, that knows this stuff. There's not much more I can learn. And my response was, well, when's the last time you spoke to the other 3? What can you learn from them? And of course, it wasn't very often at that point. So there's always learning that can be done, and for most of us we're not experts in stuff, which means we can learn every day. Okay, good stuff. So 2 different mindsets: learning, great mindset; know it all, not so great mindset. Ooh, where are we? Okay, so I did this morning. I'm going to throw these up quickly. Okay, I know you've seen this, some of you have seen it a million times, but it's really important, because if the behaviour is imposter syndrome, worst behaviour, then the input is worst input. Okay? So we know that the behaviour that comes out, if it's fake, so just had another comment, I'm good with learning, it's the remembering, John. Now, okay, I'm just going to stop there for a second on this. Lorraine's put, I'm good with learning, it's the remembering that's the problem. I hope you don't mind, Lorraine, but I'm going to pick on the self-talk that you've just typed there, because I'm good with learning, helpful, it's the remembering, John, hindering. So your sentence starts helpful and it finishes hindering. And I know you haven't put I'm bad with remembering, but that's what you're inferring on the sentence, yeah? So what we need to be doing here is we need to be going, I'm good with learning and I remember more every day. We need to change that self-talk piece, and if you missed the power of self-talk last week, well, Pete's just watched the full thing this morning, and we've got 9 other little sessions. So go back and look at that again, okay? Triggers and the way you talk to yourself. But change the self-talk. The amount of people that say they've got a bad memory, or I can't remember names, that's quite a good one. I'm rubbish with names, I can never remember names. Think to yourself in your life how many times you've said, I'm rubbish with names, I can't remember names, I'm never very good at names. All of that self-talk goes in. That will hinder you remembering names. So, if you want to learn something and remember it, learn it and then change the self-talk to, I will remember this. These things will stay in my memory. I will recall this when I want to. If you can start changing that self-talk and remember triggers 3 times a day, put those triggers in place, I'll guarantee your memory gets better. And Lorraine, if you want some memory techniques, drop me an email and I'll give you a couple of memory techniques as well. Because memory is quite easy once you've learned how to do it. Goes all the way back to what we've just said about learning. If you're good at learning, great, learn how to remember things. Yeah? So I hope you don't mind me coming back to you on that, but it's a great example for the whole group, that is, yeah? Mick, every day should be school day, as learning something new is a great motivator. I can't agree with you more, Mick. I think you're absolutely right, okay? So, the input, that's a great example that Lorraine's just given us. If the input is I can't remember, then you won't be able to remember. And that, in a certain situation, thanks Lorraine, in a certain situation, then you're going to feel like an imposter because you've learnt all about it, but you can't get it out. So that will then kickstart the imposter syndrome. I'm so glad that you gave us that example, Lorraine, because it's such a good one. Ollie's put Albert Einstein quote, the day you stop learning is the day you start dying. Whoa, love it, love it. Bit of Einstein in there. Thank you, Ollie. That's great. Okay, so you know this stuff. The input's got to be right to get the behaviour out. Simple as that. However, the reason I flashed this one up again is this big red line. Now, on other sessions that I've run, I've kind of coasted over it. This big red line on this session is the most important thing on here. When you feel lousy, in other words, imposter, and you pretend to be the not imposter, okay? That line, for those that can remember this, is called lack of gestalt, lack of balance, lack of equilibrium, right? And it causes stress. So ultimately, if you're feeling the imposter syndrome and you're having to put a brave face on it and do whatever it is you're not very confident about, it will cause you stress. And stress causes worry, sickness, low energy, anger, frustration, whichever way it's going to come out in you. Which is why living the imposter syndrome isn't very good for you. It's not very good, okay? So if somebody's asked me to put a session together very quickly, let's say Pete calls me now and says, John, I need a session, 10 minutes, I need it to be around this. Okay? Now, I could probably do that, but because I've done it quickly, I might not feel quite comfortable of the order of things. I might not feel quite comfortable. I've had time to make sure I can back up some stats about what's being said, and so on and so on and so on. Could I get through it and do it well? Probably. I think I could probably do that with the level of experience I've got. Would I feel a little bit of imposter syndrome? Absolutely. Without a doubt. And that would cause me stress, and by doing that session, it would make me more tired doing a 1-hour session with 10 minutes notice than doing a 5-hour session I'd prepared for. Because of the stress level, it would cause the imbalance, the imbalance, the lack of gestalt. So the reason I put this model back up is because that's the red line in the imposter syndrome that we need to be looking out for. When we feel like we're doing the imposter thing, we're fake and everything else over here, but we're pretending to be the best we can, so as a leader, if you're pretending to be the best leader you can, but actually there's a part of your leadership role you're blagging, or you feel like you're blagging, yeah, it's going to cause you stress. It's going to cause you gestalt. So we need to get rid of that. And the way to get rid of that is to come down here, change the input to change the output. In other words, continue to learn, make yourself feel better, practice, 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 and all the 10 things that I'm going to give you in a moment to finish off. Okay? I thought we had another comment there. We haven't. Okay, so you know that by now. So the rest of the session then are these 10 action points that you can take away. Like I say, I've changed it up a little bit because there were so many great things that you can take away in order to help yourself with this imposter syndrome. Okay, so without further ado, let's go on. So, number 1 is be realistic. Okay, you might be thinking, what do you mean? So, stop imagining worst case scenarios. That's one thing that will generate that imposter syndrome. So you start thinking, oh, I've got to do this thing, I don't feel that comfortable, I'm not that confident, and then you imagine all the bad stuff that might happen. So, what's going to happen if they ask me a question that I can't answer? What's going to happen in this situation if I do that? And generally, because you're feeling the imposter syndrome, your brain's trying to put you into fight or flight at this point. Okay? So it's releasing lots of chemical into your system. And what that chemical does, if you don't use it, it stays there and turns toxic and makes you feel worried, sick, stressed, depressed, and everything else that's going on. But because your brain's putting you into fight or flight, it's perceiving danger. Okay, not fear, don't worry. Don't compare yourself to other people, because you don't really know what somebody else is like anyway. You could see somebody as the most confident person in the world, and then they'll go home and they'll worry all night about stuff. Yeah? So the best thing you can do is don't compare yourself to people you know. Don't do that. Okay? Don't compare yourself to people you know of. That's even worse. Okay? So you look at somebody, and, you know, for instance, when I wanted to be a public speaker, I would look at the greats. You know, Martin Luther King, Obama was very good, Ali, people that were great at speaking and getting people involved. And I got to the point where I was comparing myself against them. Well, that's a nightmare. I might never be as good as them, because they're held in such high regard in my head. There's a bit of a disbelief that I can be as good as what they are. And somebody said to me, why are you comparing yourself against them? Why aren't you comparing yourself against yourself? And that's what we really need to do. And what I mean by that is, compare yourself now against, you know, set a target for the future, and then measure the target against you in the past. So, 5 years ago, I wasn't as fluent in public speaking or facilitation. I wasn't as fluent in putting training programs together as quickly. I wasn't as fluent as stopping what I was doing and going off at a tangent, which is needed on some training courses. So compare yourself against yourself. So what is it I am now? What is it I'd like to be? And then you can put a measure in between the two, because you know what you are now. You know what you'd like to be. You can put a measure in, you can also put a plan in. But it's not very useful comparing yourself against other people. In fact, all successful people, they compare themselves against themselves. Okay? They may have other people they want to surpass in certain tangible things, like I want more money than, but even that is a bad comparison. If I wanted to be richer than Richard Branson, well, if he went bankrupt, I'd do it. I'd be alright, wouldn't I? Yeah, no problem. If I had £1 and he went bankrupt, job done. I'm richer than Richard Branson. I can't control Richard Branson's wealth, but if I want to be richer than I am today next week, then I can set that target. Okay? So compare yourself against yourself. In fact, all elite sports people, unless it is a one-to-one sporting event, like boxing, for argument's sake, take that out of the equation, all elite sports people won't compare themselves against other people. They would compare themselves against their own personal best. Okay? Playing golf is a great game for that. Very rarely do you play your opponents. You're normally playing yourself. Can you do that shot a bit better than last time? Can you do this hole better than last time? Can you get under par rather than par that you did last time? And so on and so on and so on. Okay? So, stop comparing yourself about other people that you know. Don't definitely compare yourself about other people that you know of, because that's even a lesser picture of what they're really like in your head. You can compare yourself against yourself, so set yourself targets of where you want to improve. This is where I am now. This is where I want to go. How do I get there? Okay? That's number 4. Number 5. Focus on what you are good at. Okay? So, jack of all trades, expert of none, I think is the saying, isn't it? You might need to be a jack of all trades for your job, for argument's sake. However, there might be one particular area that you can excel in. Okay? Could be leadership, could be a particular area within the business, could be whatever, doesn't really matter. Yeah? 10,000 hours of practice is what they reckon makes you an expert. 10,000 hours of practice. Okay? That doesn't mean 10,000 hours of your life. No, because you've got sleep and you're doing other stuff and that. 10,000 hours. The point I'm trying to make here is, if you really want to get rid of the imposter syndrome about a particular subject, you've got to learn more about it and keep doing it over and over and over and over again. That's the best way to do it. Practice, practice, practice. Okay? Pete's put, it's got to be purposeful practice. Absolutely great point, Pete. Get all the P's out there. Great point, Pete. what Pete's trying to get at there is don't practice crap. I think that's what you're trying to get at, Pete. You probably said it more eloquently than I just did. But don't practice bad stuff. Yeah? Don't keep practicing all the bad stuff that you're doing. You've got to practice the good stuff that you're doing. Okay? So, 10,000 hours is what makes you an expert. Okay? Unless you have done one particular thing in your job for 10,000 hours, you can't call yourself an expert in it. Which means most of us on this call today would have the imposter syndrome when it comes to our job. Because we might not have done that one particular thing within the job for 10,000 hours. Okay? So, this is why when we call experts experts, they've gone to school, they've gone to college, they've gone to uni for 3 years, then they've done a master's for another 2 years, then they've done a PhD for another 3 or 4 years, and then they've gone out into the real world and actually practiced all the academic stuff that we're doing, and we call it an expert. Because it takes that long to be able to become an expert. And you might not be an expert in everything, but you might want to get to the point of practice where you feel that you're not an imposter anymore. But it's going to take a while, so you need to get on it if you want to do it properly. Okay? Practice, practice, practice. But as Pete's rightly said, make it purposeful practice. Practice the right thing, not the wrong thing. Okay? Andrew Thomond says, hi Andrew, by the way. I'm going to drop you an email, Andrew, about your session next week. Okay? Today. Andrew's put, and there's 8,760 hours a year. Use them wisely. Whoa, look at that. That's a little bit of, is that an Andrew quote? We like that, don't we, Andrew? Yeah, you need to pattern that. Very good, like it. So, practice, expert, credibility. You might not get to your 10,000 hours, but if you want to be knowledgeable in a subject, you've got to learn about it, you've got to practice it to get you to a point of credibility. Because that's the thing, that word there, is the thing that most people worry about in the imposter syndrome. They worry about losing credibility. Whether you're a public speaker, whether you're a leader, whether you're an engineer, it doesn't really matter. People are worried they're going to lose credibility. Okay? If you can do all this, you keep your credibility. You know what you're talking about, in other words. People can trust in your opinion that you know what you're talking about. Okay? So, focus on what you're good at and do it over and over and over and again, but do it properly. Okay? Andrew's just sent the copyright sign. I like it. Brilliant. Okay, number 6. Check out your self-talk. Full circle. Why does this need to be in here? Because, well, for instance, to the point that Lorraine made earlier on, for argument's sake. So, stop beating yourself up. Okay? There's probably a better way of saying that. And the better way of saying that is be kind to yourself. Rather than stop beating yourself up. Be kind to yourself is a better bit of self-talk. But I've put it up there because we beat ourselves up all the time. Actually, what you're doing, to come back to Pete's point there, Peter Law's point, if you beat yourself up regularly, you are practicing bad stuff. So be kind to yourself, talk to yourself in a better way. And again, you've got 10 videos. As soon as that link comes out, you've got 10 videos on talking to yourself now. Yeah? 9 little ones and one 45-minute one. Have helpful thoughts and do them at least 3 times a day. Triggers, 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 triggers. You know, you guys will be sick of me saying triggers by the time we've finished all these sessions. But the fact is, talk to yourself in a helpful way. Practice helpful self-talk at least 3 times a day. And then it starts to change it. Remember, you can change any thought pattern in your head over a period of 6 to 8 weeks. Even if you've had that thought pattern for over 40 years. But you've got to do it at least 3 times a day, and you've got to believe that you can do it, and you've got to be motivated to do it. Then you can start changing some patterns in your head going forward. Number 7, see mistakes as mistakes. Okay? This is something that I came across years ago. I'd love to tell you I'd made it up, but I didn't. So there you go, there's me being vulnerable. I didn't make this up, found it. But see mistakes as mistakes. Yeah, and if you're, just like you're filming like this session, okay, this one's live, so, you know, mistakes are in, unfortunately, for you. If I was recording this, mind you, some of them might have been edited out, to be fair. When my editing guy might have edited out. You can edit, if you're recording a session, you can edit and take out the mistakes, can't you? The mistakes, same in life, okay? So, see them as mistakes. If you do something wrong, or it doesn't work out, or you lose credibility, or whatever, just, you know, dull moment, notice them, learn from them, and apply something different going forward, okay? Unsuccessful people give up when they make a mistake. As we said earlier, successful people don't give up, they keep trying, but they don't keep trying the same thing, okay? Successful people try again, as I mentioned before, but don't try the same thing. So that fits into perfectly what we were saying earlier on. Successful people will give up when a mistake happens. Successful people take it as a mistake of life and they redo it. But they don't redo the same thing, otherwise they're going to get the same mistake. They're going to get that. So change mistakes to mistakes in the brain, and it just helps that psychological pattern better, more effectively change when you want to. Number 8. It's not luck, it's POMO. Now, for the people that have been on these sessions, you probably remember POMO, position of most opportunity. Sometimes we look at successful people and they go, well, they were lucky, weren't they? I had one guy that once told me that Colonel Sanders was lucky, how he built KFC. And I said to him, how was he lucky? And he said, well, you know, he's been going years, hasn't he? So when he started, there wasn't many chains like that. Didn't have a lot of competition. Right? Now think about that for a moment. Colonel Sanders, it took him only over 9 months and 327 meetings with restaurant owners to sell his recipe. He made his first $1 million 20 years later, because he started at 68 and he made his first million at 88. But the argument was still standing, yes, but all that time ago he didn't have a lot of competition. He was selling his fried chicken in Middle Belt America. I don't know if any of you guys have been to Middle Belt America, but generally you can get fried chicken anywhere because it's a staple, Middle Belt America, and it certainly was 40, 50 years ago when KFC started it. And the excuse was, well, he was lucky there was no competition. There was competition everywhere. Everybody's grandmother did fried chicken. How did he get his brand to be the way it was over grandmother's fried chicken? It wasn't luck. It was position of most opportunity. What he did is he got a camper van and he travelled around America for 9 months, meeting over 326 people of restaurant owners before and every single time he got a no, he tried something different, tweaked it, changed the approach until he got a yes. And the rest is history. Sometimes people think that success, fame, fortune, whatever it is you want, happens overnight. It really doesn't. It takes about 20 years, and it takes people getting into the position of most opportunity for it to happen. In other words, you generate peak performance and you work hard every single day, because nobody gets successful without not working hard, unless if you class money as successful, you could win the lottery. But to be fair, you could argue that you've worked to put the pound on it in the first place. Doesn't really matter, but most of the time, to be successful and happy, you need to work hard. It's as simple as that, otherwise it doesn't come to you. You learn and adapt when mistakes happen, and you do something new, just like Colonel Sanders did. Every single meeting he changed and adapted his approach. Yeah. You want to read about Dyson as well, trying to go to the bank and borrow money to invest in making the Hoover better. The amount of times he had bank managers going, well, you can't improve on the Hoover. The Hoover's going to do what it does, isn't it? Your business plan's stupid. Yeah, what did they know? Okay, so peak performance, learning and adapting will give you POMO. If you work hard and learn on a regular basis and adapt the way you do things, you will find all of a sudden you get luckier with things. It's not luckier, you're in the position to take opportunities when they come along, or create and seek out opportunities when you need to. Okay? So, if you don't want to be an imposter, if you don't want the imposter syndrome, then do that. Put yourself into the position of most opportunity, and you'll start to find that imposter syndrome starts to go away. Okay, 2 minutes left. Number 9, build your confidence. The biggest loss, the biggest problem with imposter syndrome is lack of confidence, okay? Or lack of confidence in your head. Other people might be confident about you, but you might not be confident about you, okay? So, what can you do to increase your confidence? Learn more about it. We've said it a number of times now. You might be thinking, John, you said this 3 times now. Yes, I have. 3 times. Purposely. Triggers. 3 times, okay? Learn more about it. Practice, practice, practice. But then importantly, celebrate your success when you do it right, okay? Now on this point, that's the big one, okay? You might be thinking, why? Why is it important to celebrate? Very simply, if you celebrate your success, you bank a great recalled memory of being successful in your filing cabinet. Once you have that banked, the next time you go and you feel like an imposter, you can go back into that same situation and remember your success and what you did to make that successful, which should help you with the imposter syndrome going forward. So, always celebrate your success, okay? Doesn't mean you need a staff party. It might mean you have a cup of tea, pat on the back. It might mean somebody said well done. It could mean that you, I don't know, have a glass of wine when you get in. Whatever. The point is the celebration's really important because it banks recall memories that you can use in the future. And finally, in the last 60 seconds, you can do what Branson does if all else fails. Okay? This is a school of thought. I probably shouldn't be telling you this really with you guys, but this is a school of thought that I followed for years. If somebody offers you an amazing opportunity and you're not sure you can do it, say yes and then learn how to do it later. Okay? Some of you might be thinking, well, that's a bit risky. Anybody can learn. You can learn something. On occasion somebody said, can you do a session on this? And I've gone, yeah, no problem. And then in my head I've been going, can I really? But by the time I've gone and dug out what I've done in the past and learned some stuff about it and so on and so on and so on, we can put a meaningful session together and so on. So, if all else fails with your imposter syndrome, do what Branson does. Say yes, take the opportunity, and then go and learn how to do it and do it properly. Okay, time's up guys. I hope you've enjoyed the session. It's one of the really interesting this week, the 2 sessions we've done. As always, put me a little bit of feedback in the chat box as you leave. If anybody's got any questions, whack them over to me. And have a great week. We'll get you the YouTube channel out, get it sorted with a bit of an index on everything. And I will see you next Tuesday for the next couple of sessions we've got on. Bye for now, have a good one.